NATO foreign ministers have arrived in Brussels to discuss the future of Ukraine amid widespread unease among allies over a U.S.-backed peace plan. The talks are expected to center on the plan, which European and Ukrainian officials have spent the past 2 weeks rewriting. European leaders insist that only Ukraine can decide on its own territory, while Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says security guarantees and preserving sovereignty are top priorities. Terry Schultz is at NATO headquarters in Brussels. So this meeting is being overshadowed by the U.S.-led peace talks. What can we expect from today's discussion on the peace plan?
Well, sir, I wouldn't necessarily say that it's overshadowed, but it certainly is dominated by this peace plan, because when NATO allies get together, what they normally talk about is how to both support Ukraine and how to reinforce their own defenses. So, of course, whatever happens in this peace process, if something good does come out of it, will greatly affect what their plans are. So at the moment, as we've just seen foreign ministers arrived, every one of them talked about what was happening in Moscow. And I think they're genuinely grateful that the Trump administration is trying to come up with a solution in Ukraine. At the same time, they're very worried about the fact that there are no Europeans at the table, that they're not exactly sure what was on the paper that U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff would have been discussing with the Russians. Certainly, they have been reassured by their American allies that this initial 28-point plan, which was so overwhelmingly favorable to Moscow, has been changed, that some of the measures that would have, for example, taken NATO membership off the table forever for Ukraine, or that would have given more territory than Russia is even occupying, those things are hoped not to any longer be on that paper. But they won't have the briefing that they might have liked, because Marco Rubio, the U.S. Secretary of State, will not be attending the talks. He sent his deputy instead.
Terry, Mark Rutte, the NATO Secretary General, is calling on members to pledge more military support from Ukraine. We've just seen pledges come through from the Germans and the Norwegians. Can you walk us through that and whether those pledges are seen as significant, as enough? How far will they go?
That's right. When Mark Rutte entered this morning, he said that next year even more money will be needed for Ukraine, which is not surprising, but it certainly means that they don't believe the war is ending anytime soon. Now, what Germany and Poland and Norway announced this morning was a new package, which are called PEARL, the Prioritized Ukraine Requirement List. This was a deal that was worked out where European allies buy highly sophisticated, the best weapons you can get from the United States. The U.S. has basically cut off all of its donations to Ukraine, its contributions, and they're now financed by the Europeans. So this was a new package of $500 million together. There are several of these packages that other countries have joined together. Some countries have given them themselves. And what NATO was hoping was that by the end of this year, that there will be $5 billion worth of these PEARL packages. And Secretary Rutte said next year you may need even double that. You may need one of, two of these a month. So that's certainly something that they're looking to get support from the allies on. But this will certainly be welcome, this new contribution by Germany, Poland, and Norway.
What else is on the agenda today?
Well, as you've heard Yuri and Nick talking about, of course, you have these new threats from Putin that came after the talks in Moscow, that he's ready to go to war with Europe. Now, the foreign ministers coming in today said, what's new? We hear this from Putin all the time. And basically, this is what we're preparing for every single day. So nobody seems very rattled by those new remarks. They are, however, talking about how to boost their defenses against the hybrid attacks that allies are coming under constantly. Poland, of course, just having an attack on a rail line. That's one of the countries that is very insistent that NATO talk about a more robust response. They are even talking about preemptive attacks, not just defensive attacks. Now, NATO doesn't do that as a whole during peacetime, but they certainly could signal to allies that they wouldn't be against more. I would just say signaling to Russia that these hybrid attacks will not go unchallenged through cyber or other attacks on infrastructure that may not even be visible to us. Those may be happening already, we heard from NATO officials yesterday.
Terry Schultz at NATO headquarters in Brussels. Thank you.